This wasn't a bad budget for business. It wasn't a great budget, but it wasn't a bad budget, because what we had was not a lot happening. It was stability, and stability is what business wants. It wants to know what's going on, to stay the same. There's one quite positive point, which was the annual investment allowance for capital allowances, which is up to £500,000 of expenditure on plant and machinery that can be written off against tax. And that is foreshadowed to come down to just £25,000 in January 16. And what the Chancellor said was that that's going to be reviewed. So it probably won't come down that far, and that must be good news. Annual tax returns are set to be abolished in theory. In reality, annual tax returns will not be abolished. Every year, those with affairs that are anything more than straightforward will still be required to complete a tax return one way or another. The way that's been foreshadowed is to do it online, an online tax account. The government will hold information on various taxpayers, P60 information, their earnings or benefits in kind or pensions. They won't know anything about rental income, so that will have to be input online. They won't know anything about the small business owner. The self-employed person will have to get their profit information as just for tax purposes into the system to pay tax. So small business owners, all individuals are still going to need, to an extent, accountancy advice and tax advice. It's unfortunate that HM Revenue and Customs have got a pretty poor history when it comes down to software. So one wonders as to whether their IT systems are going to be up to it when it comes to online tax accounts. This has got to be seen as quite a good budget for savers, because all savers are now going to be able to enjoy investment income, that's bank and building society interest typically, of up to £1,000 for basic rate taxpayers, completely tax-free. For higher rate taxpayers, it will be £500. For those on very low incomes, by April 16 they could enjoy up to £6,000 of interest absolutely free of tax. But you have to say, in just a minute, how many people on such low incomes are going to have several £100,000 in the bank to enable them to enjoy such interest. I think the new Help to Buy ISA is a very good idea. I don't think the amounts are significant, to be honest. I mean, saving £200 a month to get to the maximum amount, that's going to be 5 years' worth of savings to get a £3,000 credit bonus on top. It's not to be sniffed at, but that's 5 years' worth of saving. From April, those with pension funds will be able to cash in those pension funds rather than use them to buy annuities. And the budget's extended that so that those already with annuities can actually cash those annuities in, can actually sell them to third parties. In some cases that could be a very good idea, especially those on fairly low annuities, fairly low income levels, get a lump sum instead. We have to bear in mind that these individuals are still going to be paying tax on that amount of money they receive. And it may not be a good idea, apart from the tax, that they have to be very careful. They should take full advice before doing so. There's quite a bit of speculation about inheritance tax before the budget. In reality, in the budget itself, there wasn't a great deal about inheritance tax, apart from one thing. The one thing they mentioned was to do with what's called a deed of variation. And deeds of variation enable the beneficiaries of an estate to change the terms of a will, or if there was no will, to change the terms of intestacy, so that the beneficiaries themselves change, so that the money passes elsewhere where it's most needed. And that is of great value, it certainly is, because many of the badly advised or ill-advised end up with no will or leaving money to, frankly, the wrong people. You could end up with a widow, for example, not having a home. And deeds of variation can fix that. Now, for that to be effectively outlawed, or to be considered to be outlawed, does away with many generations worth of planning. It's been there for years. And in fact, it's worth mentioning that the government's own website, .gov.uk, has got an article on deeds of variation. And what the article says, in essence, is, can I use a deed of variation? And it says, yes, you can use a deed of variation. You can use it to avoid paying inheritance tax or capital gains tax. And that was last updated just 3 months ago. And I find it quite astonishing that George Osborne can say in Parliament that deeds of variation are a tax avoidance tool, and yet the government's own website encourages the use of deeds of variation.